Roughage. Get you Google it, guys. It's 7:30. Let's head to the KUAM News Zoom room where Administration Director Ed Birn is standing by. Good morning, Mr. Birn.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Sabrina.
Good morning.
Gov Guam payday.
Yes, it's GovGuam payday. That includes me.
Everything going smoothly? No delays? No anything?
No delays. No delays today.
I guess we'll go ahead and get right into it then. An update. We had the AG on yesterday about the financial management system. Do you have an update on that, Mr. Birn?
Oh, we're still waiting for the AG.
Oh.
So, the need is there. We're still working, as the auditors commented, with a system that needs to be updated. So everyone at DOA is very anxious, and I'm sure it's true. Other people in the line agencies throughout the government is anxious to progress this update as quickly and as smoothly as possible.
Right. What about the final guidance for American Rescue Plan funding, Mr. Birn? Are we any closer to being able to spend that $600 million?
Well, as we spoke about last time, the comments that U.S. Treasury have requested are not due. The final date for submission to U.S. Treasury is July 17th. I know we have a few comments, and in my discussions with other states, there certainly are a large number of comments on the interim rules. So we're going to submit those by July 17th, and it's up to U.S. Treasury as to when they make those rules final. I think they understand that the urgency that each of the states has, and of course we're interested in our own urgency, or the things that we consider to be urgent here. But so I know the U.S. Treasury understands that, and I'm sure they'll do everything they can to get these rules out as quickly as possible. They are very different. I mean, the interim rules for the ARP funds are very different from the rules that they put out for the CARES Act funds.
Oh.
And they've acknowledged that, and we've certainly identified that. So I think it's in everybody's interest to make sure that we get this done as soon as possible. But in this particular case, we're waiting for the federal government to create the final document, and we're looking forward to that.
Mr. Birn, so just theoretically, let me pick let's say like the All Rise Act, right? So if we're waiting for the final guidance, but the comments aren't due until July 17th, when do you anticipate that, I think you generally, when do you anticipate that, for example, we would see funding identified for the All Rise Act payments?
Well, of course, that's up to the governor. As I just said, everyone is acutely aware of the need to get these funds out and into the community. But we do rely upon the Treasury to give us these final guidelines. So as soon as we're comfortable and the governor is comfortable with the rules, I'm sure we're going to get them out as quickly as possible for that program and a number of other programs that depend upon the ARP funding. All these programs, I'm sure you're going to ask me in a minute about the rental assistance program. All these programs have very different rules, and it's become one of our. We've had to acquire the skill of working with the requirements and the rules of all these different programs. Obviously, the ARP funds are the biggest amount, and we and everybody else in the United States wants to make sure that we do it correctly. In fact, at one time, we were being asked, well, why haven't we got the money? Most of the questions came just before we got the money, but actually we got our funds made available to us some weeks before some other states. So we must be doing some things right here.
What type of comments or questions did you submit?
We haven't submitted them yet, but one the big question we have really is the way that the rules are written at the moment. There appear to be two separate sets of rules. One that are more relaxed and cover the discretionary funds, and one that is very, very strict and covers the recovery funds. So we need to make sure that we get those right, and there are some specific questions we have about how certain things operate. One of the new things that has happened is that we recently got the funds for the non-entitlement units. And that's a bit of a mouthful, but as far as Guam is concerned, the non-entitlement units are the villages. So the mayors are aware that we've got these funds. We have to complete some paperwork in order to get those funds over to them. And that's another rule that we're having to comply with, because there's different paperwork for that particular slice of funds from all the other funds.
How much is that?
So that's well, it's 17.3 million. We got 50% now, so it's about just over 8 million, 8.1 million, and the other 50% will come next year.
And so that is earmarked specifically for villages, is how you interpret it.
Yes, it's for non-entitlement units, which is meant to cover those political units that are smaller than the cities and counties that get the other allocation. In our case, it covers the villages.
Let me ask you about the rental assistance program then.
We're making progress with that. We've actually paid out, and there's some payments are going to go out today, around about 2.2 million. So we're beginning to make some progress, and actually that includes a small amount, and we're working on that too, for the amount that will go for continuing payments. Remember, I mentioned that last time, that the program started out by looking at the missed payments from March last year. Well, now we're beginning to carry that forward into current deficient payments. So that's really where most of the funds of the program will go, because the program lasts through the end of next year. So the funds to fund rental payments and utility payments that people aren't able to make currently or in the future will come out of those funds.
You mentioned the last couple of times you were on that there were a lot of issues about some of the arrangements between tenants and landlords not
yes,
maybe
yes.
being up to a legally defined standard. Have we wiggled the parameters at all to allow for assistance to those types of people with those types of arrangements?
Well, as I also mentioned, Chris, we have to adhere to federal rules.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I just said, this program has its own set of rules, and we keep on getting revisions to the what they call the frequently asked questions, and we had some last week. So we have to apply those federal rules, but we are able to intervene in the arrangements between the tenants and the landlords locally. And we are doing that to make sure that those that really have a liability, we can actually record it properly, and they can record it properly so that it fits within those federal rules, and the funds can be paid out.
What type of submissions have been made relative to the $300 million the governor wants to use for the construction of a new hospital?
Oh, no submissions yet. That's an allocation of funds. I think you're aware that there's a bill currently, and it got set aside, but it's back on the table now in the legislature for using funds in the future to pay for the balance of the money that's required to build the hospital. So that's going through the legislature, and when we have established exactly what the amount of money that's required for the hospital, and I think you understand also that it's not just the hospital that we're considering building.
It's $1 billion health
it's
city.
also public health. Yeah, there's a public health facility and a behavioral health facility. So it's going to be what they call a center of health excellence. That has to be established first before we can determine how much of the ARP funds are really going to be needed to match the other funds that come in to complete the hospital. You know, it's a big undertaking. It's the biggest undertaking that we've ever had on this island. So, you know, it's not going to happen overnight. But there are a lot of people, and I can tell you that because I got caught up in this when it got to the legislature. There are a lot of people working very hard to make this happen as quickly as possible too.
What do you think the split is going to be between allocated funds? I'm assuming you mean like local government budget?
Well, no. If just suppose, we looked at the Army Corps of Engineers estimated cost for a new hospital, and it was 734 million. That means that if you have 300 million from the ARP funds, or whatever the amount turns out to be, you have to finance the 434 million. So the bill that's going through the legislature now allocates the new money that's going to be available from the EITC credit repayment from the federal government to fund an annual payment on a loan, or however you look at it, some kind of financing of that 434 million.
Any update on the? Go ahead.
That's of course not the final figures, but I was just using that to give you an example to answer your question.
Any update on the COVID pay?
Yes, I knew you were going to ask me that, so I looked at the report. Yes, there has been some progress. In particular, and I know this came up publicly. Customs and Excise have finally submitted to us. We got it. I think it was Friday of last week. Submitted to us their timesheets. So we're working through that, and I'm sure some of those payments will go out today. Now that we've got the GovCon payday out of the way. And public health has also made some progress, a bit more spotty in public health. And when I looked at the report, they've paid some weeks but missed some weeks. So we're going back to them to make sure that we fill in the gaps.
How about the mayors?
The mayors too, we've had the timesheets in, and the payroll staff here are working pretty hard to get those payments out too. It would have been nice had we had these at the time, and we could have made it a routine process. But because it really doesn't help us to have these in these big lumps. But again, the payroll staff here are working pretty hard, and they work pretty long hours too. I mean, they're here every day after hours, and they come in at the weekend also. So they're working to get those out as quickly as they can. And as I say, some of those payments will go out today.
Okay. What about overtime?
Overtime, we're pretty good on. We had a little issue with some of the law enforcement agencies falling behind, but we've caught up again. I honestly think we've got overtime well under control now, and I think everybody understands the need to pay overtime as it's incurred. It's coming from all parts of the administration. I know the governor has spoken about this, and certainly as far as DOA is concerned, we want to pay that overtime to those who have worked overtime, as quickly as we can. And as really we want to pay it along with their regular pay. Some agencies can do that, some agencies can't. But as I say, I honestly think that overtime is much better controlled.
So you finally got it through their thick skulls to get your overtime paperwork in a timely manner.
I wouldn't put it that way, but I think they've been persuaded to see the way that we look at it.
Persuaded, got it. What was the other one I was going to ask you? Oh, any update on the health insurance? Has that negotiation begun on that?
Yeah, we're in the we've just about completed the health insurance negotiation. So I expect some news to come out of that probably early next week.
What else you got going on, Mr. Birn? Oh, unclaimed. I'm sorry. Was there something with unclaimed? Because I remember you guys had said you were going to announce something about unclaimed refunds and stimmies.
Yes. On our website, we've got lists of unclaimed checks for EIP1 and EIP2, and we have seen some of those claimants come in and get their checks as a result of those lists being on our website. So it was certainly a good exercise, but we still have a fair number still of unclaimed checks. And please remember that these are EIP funds, are federal funds, and they're treated differently from tax refunds. So these EIP funds, if they're not, certainly for EIP1, if they're not claimed by the end of this year, I believe, then we have to return the funds to the US Treasury. Whereas tax refunds, we have to keep available, because they're local funds, we have to keep available under statute for 10 years. So there's a difference there. But so anybody who's listening, and you can keep on, please, telling your listeners, anybody who's listening and thinks that their check wasn't properly delivered to them, go and look on that listing that's on the DOA website. And if their name is there, come in with the documentation and pick up their check.
So we're talking about the ARP and the guidance, but when we had GVB on with Uncle Carl, he had mentioned that the governor had committed $38 million in ARP funds to GVB. So when they discuss these ideas that they have, like paying $500 to each tourist, are they planning to use ARP for that? And
I don't know. That's the question you'll have to ask GVB. They have a very difficult task. I mean, to get tourism back to the levels that it was at is certainly going to be a monumental task. When tourists, when people haven't been used to traveling. It's great that we've got some tourists here now, and I hope they spend a lot of money at local stores. But if they have difficulty, because returning to their own home country because of regulations there, they're not going to come here. So GVB, I certainly look forward to any effort they can make to stimulate tourism and get what is our top industry basically back on track. But I don't know specifically what there's actually a special economic service meeting on Monday. So I'm sure we will hear more at that time because they have a representative at that hearing.
Yeah, I was just curious because if we can't spend any of the ARP funds, I was wondering if they're talking about giving $500 each to tourists, where would that money come from? But
I don't know. That's something that you should certainly ask them.
Right on. Anything else in closing, Mr. Birn?
No, we've got a lot going on. As I think I said before, it's a different task. 3 years ago we were always looking for funds. Now we have, as our congressman said, we've got these funds for a short period of time, and we want and need to make the best use of them, and that's what all of us here are trying to do. It's a task we're trying to do with the same people that were here before. So everybody is working. I know And I certainly would like to record this, that everybody at DOA is working very, very hard to deal with these funds and get them out to the recipients as quickly and as smoothly as possible. It's a cooperative effort across many agencies. I mean, we and DRT cooperate on all these tax and EIP payments. We cooperate with DOL on the unemployment payments, which you know, I know they're going to phase out, but we've still got them through September going on. In fact, I think we've got some underway this week. So if there's any message I would like to is thank everybody at DOA and in all the other departments that are involved in these efforts for working so very hard to get all these programs up and running. And you know, I think this week we also got a new program which is to do with low-income water payments subsidies. So that's a new program we've got here. We're going to work to set that up too. I don't know a whole lot about it yet. I've got some documentation to read over the weekend. But thank you everybody for working so very hard.
Let me ask you, Mr. Birn, because I know that we're talking about the best use of these funds that we haven't begun to use yet. But over in the CNMI, they've already expended some of their ARP funding. What do you make of that?
You know, they're very good at saying that they've done this or done that ahead of us. They're usually less challenged than we are. You know, first of all, it's a smaller amount, and they don't have some of the complications that we have here, and it's good for them. But every jurisdiction must take their own decisions. As I mentioned, some other states have decided to wait for these rules as we have, especially those states that have been subject to some criticism by US Treasury in the past. We're just being as careful as we can, but we're as mindful as CNMI of the need for money to go out. But you know, it's not like we've got lots of programs there still dispersing money, and there's each of the agencies have other federal funds that are being dispersed too. So there is money getting out into the community. I'm not sure exactly what the CNMI has expended, but you know, that they're doing a good job too. But they're a smaller community than we are and have different issues.
Sorry, I didn't mean to make you mad, Mr. Birn.
You didn't make me mad.
So classy.
There's only a few things that make me really mad.
All right.
And you haven't really touched one yet.
Good. Well, maybe next time.
Oh yeah. You're gonna try, are you?
Yeah, no. Well, good. We're good, Mr. Bree. You good over there?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for the updates, Mr. Birn. Always good to have you on and touch on the million subjects that we always do touch on.
Yes, thank you. And no, thank you for taking interest in department administration. It's not something that people immediately associate. You know, they see the police force out there, and they see other government services. But department administration, our goal is to keep things going quietly in the background. But you make sure that it isn't in the background anymore.
Yeah, because you're where the people pick up the checks at, Mr. Birn. Of course, I'm going to call you.
The money man.
You're the money man. Okay, take it easy. Have a good weekend, Ed.
Thank you.
We'll see you.
Keep well.
Okay. Mr. Ed Birn, Administration Director. Always good stuff there. So there you go. GovGuam employees, overtime, looking good. COVID differential pay, it's on the way. All Rise Act, not so much yet, maybe. That was funny, huh, Bree? The pesky CNMI. But the way he says it, right? It's so... I don't know if it's that accent. It's so genius for the governor, and I think she probably, because he's former Governor Eddie Calvo holdover. He was the Department of Administration director under Governor Eddie Calvo. So I wonder if Governor Lou would listen to him back then and be like, I like this accent thing, because it's like you trust, like, when it comes to money, like you want to trust a person with a British accent. I don't know, like they invented capitalism, So when I asked him about cnmi spending money, what did he say, Jay? He was like, oh, they're very good at saying they're doing this and they're doing that ahead of schedule. Anyway. Hi, Bree.
Hi.
What you working on over there? Can't say?
Oh, just looking up, the president had given a press conference on the withdrawal of troops in Afghanistan and was talking a little bit about the movement of the Afghan interpreters and nationals that helped the United States during the war. So I was going through the transcripts and the video to see if there was any specific mention of Guam. But, there wasn't any specific mention of Guam, but they're going to start moving people in August, in a couple weeks, to U.S. facilities.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So, the word was that we were going to hear something possibly today.
Yeah.
But the president didn't give any specifics other than, we're going to start moving people.
Well, I did hear from a lady over in the States that there are some deployments heading to Guam. There's like a big deployment.